This does not even deserve a captain's log introduction, because this is dead serious. The inside and outside tour I did a few months ago of my house, everyone hearing it, my mother and my father are angry at me, they're blaming me, it's my fault, I am it, it's my fault, I want everything about my house off the internet!
Autism is all the rage these days. Around 3% of children are diagnosed with an autism spectrum disorder. The fight for some sort of cure, with the cause being attributed to acetaminophen or circumcision. It seems like we're in some sort of autism epidemic. Now, I'm not qualified to get into the science of what causes autism and whether there's some sort of cure. We'll leave that to the professionals.
That's called a bird grasshopper. Here he is.
This video isn't about diagnosis or science, it's about what the internet does to autistic people in the spotlight, for better or for much, much worse. And there are 3 cases that highlight what happens when online attention, trolling, and lack of safeguards convert neurodivergence into a public performance with real emotional and life consequences. And I think a good place to start is with somebody whose story is still unfolding to this day, and that person is Joshua Block, better known online as World of Tshirts. As a kid growing up during the TikTok boom, it's no surprise that Josh would gravitate towards making online videos with the dreams of becoming famous. Like most TikTokers, his content consisted of silly little dances, lip syncing, and exploring the beautiful streets of New York City. Pretty harmless stuff. Okay, maybe not all harmless. This arc, dubbed the Coffee and Boba arc, was pretty good, all things considered. In came the Cancun trip of 2021. In November of that year, Josh would take a trip to Cancun, Mexico, and since the drinking age is lower there than it is here in the US, this is where Josh would get his first experience with alcohol. Live streaming his entire drunken ordeal, with chat pushing him to drink more and more, until eventually blacking out and even losing his phone. Since his father isn't in the picture, his mother passing in 2014, and his current guardian being his elderly grandfather who may not have the stamina for the constant day trips to New York City, has left Josh alone to his own devices. There isn't anything wrong with a young adult exploring the city or doing solo trips outside of the country, even if they are further on the spectrum. But with Josh's growing internet popularity mixed with his escalating dependency on alcohol, Josh's 21st birthday, allowing him free reign to drink whenever he wants, would send him down a dark path, especially without somebody to help keep him in check. Around 2022, a man named Michael Quinn found Josh online due to his growing popularity and began his move in leeching off this vulnerable autistic young adult. Quinn took on a sort of managerial role for Josh, encouraging him to start an NYC tour, illegally, and more notoriously, pushing Josh further and further into alcoholism by supplying him with as many drinks as he wants. While Quinn did enable Josh's alcohol dependency, all the blame can't be put on him, since at the end of the day, Josh is an adult and does have agency. But the way he inserted himself into Josh's content made it clear that it wasn't out of mentoring and taking care of Josh, but to scrape up any money or clout he could get.
So the only way you could see Josh live on TikTok is if you follow This Is Michael Quinn. But that sucks, you know, because
I know.
I feel bad about that.
And you can see how he would prop himself up as some sort of role model, protecting him and teaching the young kid how to drink responsibly. But then he would go on to record Josh during drunken meltdowns or go after other TikTok accounts that were detractors of Quinn's actions. Now, if it was just Michael Quinn being a clout goblin, then things wouldn't be so bleak. But around this time, Josh would ramp up his live streams on TikTok. Since he posted so much and was live for hours on end, it wasn't that hard to track him down, leading certain members of his audience to find him out in the wild and begin harassing him, all leading to the fateful hat stealing incident. Josh wears a captain's hat, that's his whole, shtick. This became the mission to so many: find Josh, steal his hat, and watch the crash out commence without anyone there to stop it. At a certain point, Quinn and Josh stopped being friends, as Michael puts it, but Josh was still doing what he was doing. Still wandering New York, still drinking anything with a percent, and his drunken outbursts would get worse and worse. The term "put the fries in the bag" began being used to insult Josh, sending him into an absolute frenzy anytime he heard it. People didn't need to steal the hat anymore. They just needed to drive by Josh, yell, "Put the fries in the bag," and get an easy crash out. And once again, while Josh is autistic, leading to a lack of certain social skills and impulse regulation, the constant push for him to drink more alcohol, which inhibits a person even more, is a recipe for disaster, which only gets worse with Josh's next manager. Jason Itzler, also known as Mr. Based Online, is an underground streamer and former prostitution ringleader with a criminal history including drug trafficking, money laundering, assault with a deadly weapon, burglary, and stalking. Makes Michael Quinn look like a hot dog salesman. Oh wait. While Josh did have experience streaming on TikTok, that is nothing compared to kick streaming. This cesspool of degeneracy is where the most famous World of Tshirts clips originated from. Based would get Josh even more booze, introduce him to cigarettes, zins, have the kid almost fish out on galaxy gas, and who knows what other drugs. They'd be outside even more, leading to even more people approaching Josh, leading to even more dangerous outbursts. And due to TTS, this didn't stop when they were in the safety of Mr. Based's apartment. When someone donates on TikTok, they get a rose or a silly little hat, but on Kick, the donator gets to leave a message that plays out loud for everyone to hear, so people would spam donate, put the fries in the bag, leading to Josh having more meltdowns even when he wasn't in public.
Mr. Beast, how does it feel to exploit a young, disabled person like Josh for abuse?
Disabled!
Just go to rehab, just go to rehab, Josh, go to rehab, Josh.
Disabled!
And here you can see Mr. Based pulling the Michael Quinn card and allowing this to continue. Based has the option to turn off TTS, but he knows that if he keeps it on, people will keep donating to get a reaction out of Josh, and he'll make more money. Even when they're in public, if someone comes up to Josh, Based will just sit there and stream the whole altercation. The only time he would step in is when he would be threatened with getting in trouble, or even worse, banned. Even after Josh got diagnosed with pancreatitis, a deadly disease caused from alcohol abuse, Based gave minimal pushback on Josh with cutting back his drinking. Someone actually talked to Josh's grandpa, and here you can see his grandpa talk about how bad of an influence Based is and how worried he is for his grandson.
Believe me, it is not the family. We worry sick about him. His grandmother's just destroyed by the situation.
But in Josh's mind, I'm sure he sees this as his grandfather trying to ruin his fun, when in reality, I think he just doesn't want his grandson to fucking die. Eventually, Josh would leave Based in the dust, but things still haven't gotten better, falling into the hands of Jack Doherty. Maybe not as criminal as Based, but definitely somebody who doesn't have Josh's best interest in mind.
Ah! My nose! I think it's fractured!
And that's where we are with Josh. He's getting tossed around from shit tier streamer to shit tier streamer, getting pumped full of alcohol, harassed, and put into worse and worse scenarios. Josh does have negative traits that shouldn't be excused by his autism, but I truly believe that if it wasn't for these managers, the people that are with Josh, even when the cameras are off, allowing these bad things to continue, World of Tshirts wouldn't be this internet crash out lolcow that we see today. Trolls will always be trolls, so there's no way of knowing how much IRL harassment he'd receive, but I guarantee it would be nowhere near the amount he gets today. Everyone feigned care when in reality they were after money and internet fame, all at the expense of this autistic kid, which will no doubt end in tragedy. And the crazy part is, a similar story has already been documented and played out with another autistic individual online. A story that some of you may already know, the story of Christine Weston Chandler. There's a good chance that Chris Chan is the most documented person of all time. From news articles, high school assignments, email exchanges, and photos that should never be shared under any circumstances, anything there is to know about Chris Chan is publicly available for all to see. There is an 85-part documentary series about Chris from birth to the modern era, okay? History needs to be taught in college at this point. Growing up, it was obvious that Chris wasn't a normal kid. I mean, he did really like Sonic, kind of a dead giveaway. Thankfully, he did have relatively supportive parents that allowed him to have a normal childhood. I say relatively because while they did fight back against the school system that allegedly abused Chris or supported him in changing his name from Christopher to Christian after an animatronic bear misheard him, yes, that actually happened, there are aspects of their parenting that in hindsight would put Chris onto the path that he would end up on. First up is their spoiling of Chris. From the countless pictures of Chris's room, it's clear that the kid got whatever the hell he wanted. This, mixed with Chris's autism, has led to an almost childlike case of self-entitlement. This greediness for material goods is one thing, but with Chris's lack of social skills, once again due to his autism, shows him feeling entitled to awards, competition wins, and of course, relationships with girls. Anytime he'd meet a girl, he would not lay off of them, even when told multiple times to back off. Chris is the main person at fault here, but don't you think it's also on the parents to see this behavior and correct it? When Chris was suspended from college or the mall for loitering with his attraction signs, instead of explaining to Chris that maybe this isn't the way to go about things, they would blindly support him and lash out with legal threats. There never seemed to be an initiative from Bob and Barbara to find Chris a proper group, maybe a group of other autistic individuals or social workers that could help Chris in his socializing. I feel like at the end of the day, they either didn't care or didn't know what Chris was getting up to. And the latter seems a lot more likely due to their approach, or lack thereof, with Chris's relationship with the internet. Like most people in the early days of the internet, Chris would have his very own website where he would post newsletters about his special interests and share information about his life, usually in the form of comics which blurred the lines between fiction and real events. Sure, it was a bit in depth, but it's as harmless as anybody else posting blogs about their woes. That was until he was discovered by the fine people over on 4chan, the darkest shithole on the internet. At first, it was light memeing. They would reach out to Chris, sending him fan art of his original characters doing unsavory acts just to get a rise out of him. Chris would obviously respond, and with every email exchange being posted for everyone to see, his audience only grew, and this would open the floodgates to what I believe is the most insane life of trolling ever seen. Trolls were quick to notice Chris's desire for a boyfriend-free girl. It's all he seemed to ever talk about. So individuals would begin crafting these woman personas and reaching out to Chris under the guise of being interested in a relationship. Lori, Blanca, Sarah, Panda Halo, Julie, bro was drowning in bitches. But no matter what, eventually they would end up revealing themselves, leaving Chris heartbroken and embarrassed, especially because their main goal was to have the guy do some insane acts. They had him wear his mother's underwear, create fetish videos, even send his most prized possession, his Sonichu medallion, where the troll behind the character would then make videos of him destroying it in various ways, all just to mess with Chris. But I'd say the cruelest catfish was Julie. Later, in a joint effort between Julie's troll and another who had become a main villain in Chris's world, they had him convinced that Julie was kidnapped by Clyde Cash, leading him to drive 400 miles from Virginia to Ohio alone. And lo and behold, when Chris arrived, the address was fake, there was no Julie to be found. While he said that the trip was somewhat of a good experience, this incident could have ended far worse if the trolls really wanted to harm Chris. Shortly after his return, Chris would hop on a call with Julie's captor, where he would essentially torture Chris for nearly an hour. They had the password to Chris's PlayStation Network account and would hold it over his head, having Chris do whatever they want just to get his games back. At first, it was just having Chris say that he's not the mayor of Quickville, the fictional city in Chris's mind. Then they had him do silly dances, and then they had him cut up his Sonichu medallion and shove it up his The call ends when the troll reveals that he was Julie the whole time. The reason he sounds like a girl is because he's a 13-year-old boy. Throughout the call, you can hear other trolls call out Blue Spike and tell him that he's taking it too far.
Oh God, poor Sash.
Blue Spike, no more.
Keep going.
Blue Spike, stop this shit.
But at the end of the day, these other trolls helped facilitate this whole thing to take place. After the incident, there was a split online. Some thought it was time to leave Chris alone and shut down the websites dedicated to harassing him, while others said, no, we're gonna keep it going, we're gonna create new websites and create new characters to mess with Chris for more years to come. More fake sweethearts would appear before quickly revealing to be a troll to Chris's dismay. Others would take Chris's obsession with his own characters and convince him that they're making a real game or a show just to alter the characters and make them gay to trigger Chris's homophobia. trolls held a singing contest with Chris and a doppelganger to fight over who is the real Chris Chan. I'm not joking, this story is insane. And while Chris by no means is the greatest person in the world, racism, homophobia, ableism being some of his notable traits, it really doesn't feel like the trolls are attacking him because of those, but because he's autistic and it's funny to make him suffer. Chris already had a childlike grasp on reality, believing that any girl reaching out to him is real or that his Sonichu comics are way bigger than they actually are. But then in the later years, we have trolls push Chris even further into a psychotic state, making her, Chris's transition at this point, believe that Sonichu and all of her made-up characters are actually real. She begins spouting prophecies of this dimensional merge where all the cartoon characters are gonna become real and she's a goddess, and even later claiming to be the second coming of Christ. With her father passing, family home burning down, and exile from public spaces like churches and game stores, combined with her constant trolling for decades, has turned Chris Chan into this internet villain. And I don't want to make Christine out to be this flawless victim without fault. Understanding the cause isn't the same as excusing the actions. Obviously, there's no way of really knowing. But I believe that without this long span of trolling, tricking Chris, and altering her perception of reality, there's no shot in hell that what has happened in the most recent saga of Chris's life would have taken place. In 2021, it would be revealed that Chris Chan was having sexual relations with her own mother. Jesus. This one's really tough because while trolls would goad Christine into doing outrageous acts, this one was done out of her own volition. So was it the autism? Was it the psychosis maybe brought upon by the years of manipulation? There's no way of knowing, okay? Chris knew the illegal nature of incest, and that's all there is to it. Like Josh, the story of Chris Chan is a tragic one, with constant trolls trying to create the next big saga, to the lack of real people in her life to bring her back to reality. Instead of taking the bad of Christine and attempting to correct it, they'd instead use it as an excuse to punish her. You can't feel bad for Chris Chan because she's done this and that, and now you really can't defend her because, I mean, she f***ed her mom. But would we have gotten to this point if those online just let this socially awkward autistic kid upload his silly comics and videos online without ever interacting with them? As of 2025, Chris Chan has been out of jail for a few years now. Once in a blue moon, she'll be spotted out in the wild and photos will circulate online like they're the Bigfoot photos. She'll upload here and there, but for the most part, Christine Weston Chandler has been left into internet obscurity, which is probably for the best. A similar conclusion to another online individual, though this person is in a far worse state. Daniel Larson is like World of Tshirts and Chris Chan combined and turned up to 11. Though not as big as Josh, Daniel's rise began on TikTok. Like Chris, Daniel has extreme delusions of grandeur, believing he's this famous singer-songwriter with countless fans, which is amplified by numerous trolls. And like both, Daniel has had many unsavory moments both off and on camera. Daniel's early life was already fraught with turbulence. His father left the family, and his mother would later become paralyzed and wheelchair-bound. After that, Daniel would be moved around from different foster homes until eventually his grandmother would get full custody. Mixing that situation with Daniel being diagnosed with autism, bipolar disorder, and schizophrenia at a young age paints a picture of a kid with a tough future ahead of him. Daniel did have positive hands in his life with his grandma and Bob Proctor, a social worker at the Tennyson Center, but it really doesn't seem like they were equipped to handle Daniel at the level he was at. Bars. I'm sorry, I had to. Eventually, his grandma would pass and Daniel would be placed into group homes for those with disabilities. With caretakers to watch over Daniel's safety, help him develop and integrate with society, this should have been a difficult but good spot for Daniel to be in. But with the first 20 years of his life setting him up, it wouldn't take much to knock him down. Daniel would begin posting around 2020 with comments jokingly calling him Mr. President since he declared that he's running for presidency that year.
Hello, this is Daniel Larson. I am planning on running for president in the future. If you think that that's a good idea, please click the thumbs up, give me a like, give me a follow, and give me a comment. Please stay tuned. Thank you.
But like the stories before, things would change when people online would begin contacting Daniel directly, pretending to be record labels and music managers. They'd have him do offensive things, mostly say slurs and such, but of course it would ramp up to Daniel exposing himself on TikTok Live. But where Chris Chan would realize that he's been duped and cut contact with specific trolls, Daniel never did. Time and time again, people would reach out pretending to be the same record labels and management companies, and Daniel would believe it. He genuinely believed that he was this famous, that he had all these fans, that he was actually in a relationship with Grace VanderWaal. Excuse the drama, but for you Larsonians out there, you know the name. Grace VanderWaal is a singer who got popular by winning America's Got Talent at 12 years old. After seeing her on AGT in 2016, this would begin Daniel's obsession with the girl that continues on till this day. Daniel, in his mind, genuinely 100% believes that him and Grace are in a relationship and have been for all these years. Of course, this isn't helped with the many trolls reaching out to Daniel pretending to be Grace, fueling the madness. But even till the end, with Daniel's final troll, the one that's been with him the longest, coming clean, saying that he has never been in contact with Grace, Daniel still believes. And that's the main story with Daniel Larson. He was kicked out of multiple assisted living homes for violent outbursts and property damage, leaving him homeless and roaming the streets of Colorado. He dined and dashed countless times, multiple arrest warrants, and many run-ins with the police. But throughout every incident, Daniel would say the same thing. He's a famous singer-songwriter, he's dating another very famous singer, and he's only getting harassed because of the fans. At the current moment, Daniel is in a federal corrections institution being charged with 7 counts of threats. And while it's pretty obvious that Daniel was never gonna the White House, this is probably the best scenario for him. With claims of pedophilia, assaulting his caretaker Bob, adopting a dog and mistreating it, the destruction of halfway homes and motels, the potential spread of scabies in California, Daniel isn't just a threat to society, but to himself. When he'd get upset, he would hit himself, causing physical damage. Being homeless in Colorado wasn't easy either, with the cold winters and the constant travel on foot deteriorating his body. And the trolls constantly in his ear, making him believe anything they want. The FBI is after him, people are following him, his life is in danger. But Daniel would never stop. And I feel like that's the main issue that ties all these people together. The never-ending cycle of posting even after something horrible has happened to them. With all of these scenarios, there comes a moment where they realize that the things they post and the people that watch are hurting them, but they continue anyway. Maybe it's the lack of attention they received as a child. Maybe that attention, even for just a moment, makes them feel normal. Even if the comments are negative, at least they're seen. No matter the reason though, it is a constant feedback loop of attention that I don't think is healthy for anyone, especially somebody with this level of developmental issues. If they were just left to fall into the never-ending feed of content instead of being put on a pedestal for people to laugh at and harass, without those with bad intentions coming in and manipulating and pushing them to such extremes, maybe they would have just moved on. But at the end of the day, we can blame the trolls, we can say that it's the lack of people in their life or even the system that's failed them. But how do you help somebody who doesn't want to be helped?